one, how I'm going to draw, and two, what we're going to do about a potential character design for a Rivals of Aether mod coming up. I've spent the past 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get OBS to actually render Clip Studio Paint, and I think we finally have an answer. Hit that button, and hopefully everything's not on fire here. So it turns out that Clip Studio Paint doesn't render like a bunch of other programs, and you can't capture it through a specific window. You have to use a display capture. It took me all of 30 minutes to figure that one out. So, go ahead and figure that out. Alright, everything seems to be working. Left hand will spin the remainder of the stream glued to Control and Z on the keyboard. So, what we have set up here is we are going to try to figure out what we're doing about a Rivals of Aether character design. For those of you who were here on, I believe it was a Thursday stream, that is basically an indie Smash Brothers game that is mostly derivative of Melee, but all the character designs are mostly somewhat furry focused. Actually, I'll just go ahead and paste that logo in here real quick and see how that turns out. Scale that bad boy down. Just throw him off to the side over here. So we'll just use that as the necessary example of just what it is we're focusing on here. Simple enough. So, what we've had in mind so far, we've had a couple of animalistic suggestions. What we are focusing on here is... Oh. You can tell I don't use my art program very much. Character... I'm not gonna... I shouldn't write that out. I'll just go ahead and type things. My handwriting's horrible. As it is with all doctors out there. So we're focusing on a character design for Rivals of Aether here. That font is way too huge. Let's turn that bad boy down. So what we're focusing on is figuring out what is befitting of Xander as a character in terms of gameplay style and the character design itself. On the stream so far, we've had suggestions of... One, we've had... Why are you defaulting this such a huge size? Smaller. So far, we've had suggestions of, one, a snow leopard, which is an interesting idea. I'm not sure I see it yet, but we'll play around tonight and see if we can figure something out. Aside from that, my personal suggestion was something lizard-like, so as a joke due to my love of rhymes and horrible puns, why not try a salamander? Mostly we're going to figure out what try to fits well with the idea of Mr. Science Boy here being so skinny and aggressive, but also laid back and a little aloof and smug. Now let's see. I'm going to need some references, so that's what we'll spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out. What kinds of salamanders are there out there anyway? I wonder if there's any specific one that tends to fit our criteria best. Seems just about every image I'm getting. We're getting a lot of these guys. Just pop this little guy over here. So in terms of character design, we already have something very lizard-like to draw from. In, what's his name? Reno, I think, is the name of the gecko character. I think he's a gecko. What is he, anyway? Let's look that up real quick. He is a poison dart frog, so he's very amphibian, and as you can tell from the character design here, he's something we could definitely draw a little bit of example from in terms of maybe a facial structure or how we're supposed to go about with our appearance. plop him off to the side over there. Blue Barracuda, you'd vote chameleon. That's... I'm definitely thinking something lizard-like in the end. That's going to be our focus here. Welcome to the stream, Barracuda, by the way. So it seems that's what most of our votes are going towards. Something lizard-like or reptilian, mostly. Not necessarily that it fits a more villainous depiction, as reptiles usually are, but for the case of me being aloof and smug all the time, I think that works. How are we supposed to draw a little face like that? So most importantly, I think we're going to need to try to figure out the cartoonish proportions we're looking at for the character design here. Most of the Rivals of Aether characters are drawn in typical animal style that's a little cartoony, so what proportions are we looking at? Something about that size for the head. We'll see what we can do about drawing a skeletal structure from here on out. How are you doing tonight, Barracuda? I don't think I've seen you around here before. You, play Rivals of Aether, or have you shown up on the stream before? Scale this bad boy up, and we might have a good reference to get a size off of. Wrong one. Where do I have that boy pasted? So tonight, instead of me teaching the class too often, it's going to be a little bit different in the case of me trying to learn myself how to use this software. I've had Clip Studio Paint for a while, but I'm not too familiar. You're good. Also drawing. Ah, well, if you have anything to teach me, I'd be glad to learn. I used to have an interest in cartooning in the past, but that was when I was but a wee little kid. That's a good rough size for us to be working off of. Ah, you know what this could use? Some BGM. I don't have my royalty-free libraries on me at the moment. You don't play Rivals of Aether, but you have pot-busted me a couple of times in Strive. All right. That's absolutely welcome. You know, I probably would play grapplers a lot more, but I've never really found one I've vibed with. Potemkin's probably the closest. I wonder, maybe not necessarily that my face lends to it very well. Maybe. I don't think you can really build a grappler-type character in Rivals of Aether, can you? So, given that he's a lizard, we can probably have him... what's the word? Digitigrade legs? I think that's the terminology for... Let's look that up. I think that's the official terminology for the sort of legs you find on most animals, where they have the feet and the toes that extend a little bit differently. But given Ranmo here as something we're drawing inspiration from, he's a little more cartoony and human-like. He doesn't necessarily have digitigrade legs. I wonder if they have other lizards for us to draw inspiration from. So, looking at proportions, that's roughly a good head size. You can maybe sketch the little eye ridges here somewhat for reference. Get our eraser done a little bit there. So let's see, let's take a look at our little salamander boy we'll be using as a reference. I need a hotkey for a scale and rotation. Kayla on a different account, welcome. Lizards usually plantigrade, actually, like, you know, I think... Well, that shows actually how much I know about biology. Of course, I do lean to more of an engineer. I suppose out of anyone that would be able to teach me, it would be you. Think I've figured out which of my viewers you are at this point, even though I haven't had you chatting too often. Plantigrade. Noted. You have taught me something new as well today. So we'll extend those ridges forward a little bit. And as a lizard goes, pop in two tiny little nostrils there. Erase some of the little areas around here and try to smooth things out a little bit. We also have Eliana that we could use for a reference. Ah, James, welcome to the stream. I'm glad to see you show up. Let's look it up. What's her name? Rivals of Aether. How do you even spell Eliana? I think it's two N's. No, it's two L's and then one N. We'll just take a look at the existing reptilian characters in Rivals of Aether, and we'll use that to build off of. Guess I should probably spell the search right if I'm going to get the image I'm looking for. Ah, that's an excellent picture. Let's drop that on a new canvas. So use that as a bit of reference there. We're seeing roughly the same shape on Eliana as well. General reptilian face, you have the eye ridges sticking above everything else. Otherwise, kind of a smooth pancakey face, and then the nose gets raised up a little bit. You will be drawing as well, not sure what yet. It's going to be an entire artist circle here tonight, it looks like. Mostly a case of sitting back and enjoying the vibes. I have a couple of other places I have to be here later tonight, so we're just going to watch the clock wind down and see what sort of progress we can make in that time. Erase that a little bit. I think we have a good reference on the sort of ridge we should have for face there. Looking at, I suppose we really should separate onto a new layer then, shouldn't we? New layer, paste that again. Always name your layers and make sure that you can tell which ones are which. I didn't grab the wrong one now, did I? There we go. Now, am I still having that issue from earlier? Doesn't seem like it. Earlier, there was an issue where once I started drawing a line, it would not actually scribble anything down until I've moved my pen tablet far enough. And I don't know what would be causing that. So we've got some rather large cartoony eyes on our other reptilian characters. I think we can go with something similar enough right there. Da-da-da. Simple enough. Looking at my character model, I wonder if the Surime eyes could be represented pretty well on a lizard-like character. Sushi Fairy, I'm glad to see you here as well. Welcome. You get to make fun of the professor attempting to draw. So that is the terminology for the eye style you find on my character. When it comes to, you'll see it most often in anime drawings. There's a few different ways you can cartoon and exaggerate certain character eye features. It's not exclusive to Japanese art, but a lot of Western cartoons you'll see will have more, at least some of the mainstream ones, will have generally simple and circular eye designs. But you'll have your normal almond-shaped eyes, somewhat like this. If I was a bit more knowledgeable, you'd have a better reference. You'd have a better reference of images for me to be using. I am going to butcher the pronunciation so much, but there is also the how do I draw it? There's a name for the eyes that sort of pinch the end further downwards on the eyes, and those are referred to as Tarime eyes. If you go onto TV tropes, we probably have some better references to look at. And this is something that's going to help with character design and knowing how you're supposed to show off what a character is supposed to be. Because when it comes to fighting game design, the most important thing is you have to look at a character and know exactly how they're going to play. Anyone watch, what's their name? Sugar Punch, I think. That's the name of the channel that does quite a good number of fighting game related art videos. Most of your teachers just draw stick figures. I'm already better than most. Well, I did have a cartooning history about, oh, how long has it been? 11 years ago at this point was probably the last time I actually drew anything. I used to have an interest in being a cartoonist when I was but a wee Xander. So, just as a better example, I'm going to go ahead and pull straight off of TV tropes. They've got Lucky Star examples here, and it's actually an excellent comparison to make. So we have, I have no idea what the name of this character is, but I know she's from Lucky Star. These are what we refer to as Tarima eyes, which you'll notice that the pinch towards the end of them is further downwards on the eye, and that usually gives the impression of a cuter, more innocent character. Versus Surime eyes. Get that reference. Which is going to be important to the characterization here. You'll see these have a pinch more towards the top of the eyes. And that is usually used to represent Sugar Punch, the guy who had a massive meltdown about Banjo-Kazooie and Smash and hid it behind an April Fool's video. Ah, I must have missed that. I'll have to take a look at it. Isn't Sugar Punch a group? I think Sugar Punch is a group. I don't know if there's just one guy. But I have watched their videos on references for fighting game character design. So, Surime eyes here have the pinch more towards the top, and that gives an impression of a more intelligent character. Let me see if I can read up my PNGs somewhere. Just as another point of reference. Remind me about that meltdown. I'll have to watch that later. Because I definitely enjoy watching people have meltdowns on their streams. Those are my social media profile pics, but maybe I could go ahead and find a nice little PNG which has a bit of a better reference. There we go, get a zoom in there. It's, the glasses glare is in the way. But, well, you can get that for a reference on looking at me in the corner of the room here. The Surime eyes, which are structured towards having the point at the top. Somewhat like that. Makes you look a little bit more cunning and sinister, and I think that actually fits very well with the shape that we have planned for a reptilian sort of creature. You'll see we can sort of draw a similar shape here. We have generally a rounded eye right here, and you could sort of cartoon some sort of a general well-rounded eyeball out of that. But with a little manipulation of the shapes, we could probably do something more akin to that, which will focus the point at the back of the eye upwards. And you can't actually, if you look at Eliana here, looks like she's going full-blown Tarima eyes, given that they sort of just pinch right down here at the back. And that's generally how most male and female characters are going to be drawn, is females will generally have the much rounder, more innocent-looking Tarima eyes, and then most male characters are going to have Surima eyes. That's why it's important to note a distinction whenever one of those characters crosses over that barrier. I'm not making any of those defiances there, but I do have one friend who has a particular fixation on brainiac girls who do have the Surima eyes, which makes them look less feminine. It can have more of a laid back or tomboy appearance. I know she's usually lurking in my streams, but I don't think she's here now. So let's go ahead and just... program's already ready to crash. Go ahead and see if we can try to sketch in something. Now that looks a little bit sinister. We might have to widen up those eyes a bit. You'll see with Renmo here, his eye ridges actually go very, very, very high up on his face. I am the strong. Welcome. There is something going on here. I'm not sure that I'd call it art. We are focusing on trying to implement a character design for Rivals of Aether. So, in order to give the impression of having an intelligent character but someone a little less sinister, let's raise those eye ridges up a little bit more. Another sign of intelligent characters in character design usually shows up in having large eyes, which you'll see generally on anime characters whatsoever, but if they're very, very open, it shows friendliness and usually sort of an open intelligence. And there's a bit of a weird gray area that we have to get into here, where I look smug but also open and approachable. That was one of the more difficult parts of my character design I had to convey to my artist. But most of the time you will see that my eyes are wide open, friendly, approachable, but once I start slightly closing them, looks a little bit more smug and sinister. I have to hold the expression and look at one of my other screens because my VTuber model is not rendering on my main screen here. So we're going to try to make something a bit more open and approachable. Balance out that little ridge a bit. Starting to look like a frog there, kind of. Do this. The most important part is getting that tip at the back. And then we'll try to keep ourselves some very wide open eyes. And I think the front here, let's go ahead and look at Eliana. Those point very hard at the front. But we generally have sort of a flat bottom right here. So instead of rounding that out, that sort of gives us a bit of a sinister point here. Let's go ahead and zoom in for a bit of a better view. So previously we did have a bit of a sinister looking point there. Let's see if we can try to ease that up a little bit by making the bottom ridge of the eye a little bit more approachable there. And then we can sort of round out the front a little bit. We're not trying to get things perfect, we're just trying to get a general shape for us to be looking at. Barracuda, do you have any criticisms? Anything constructive will help. I believe I have quite a few artists in my viewer base. I am open to any suggestions or ideas being thrown at the wall. We're mostly seeing what sticks here tonight. Very relaxed and laid-back sort of stream going on here. Take a drink. I think that's just generally a good way for us to be lining out the shape of the head there. In terms of bodily proportions, grab our boy off to the side. Comparing our head sizes, I think we can afford to make our character a little bit, or we can make Remo a little bit bigger in order to make him compare. I think that's a start. And given my general unfamiliarity with anatomy, bear with me here because I'm probably going to have to make quite a few revisions of this. So, that's one thing that's generally held me back most from doing art more regularly is trying to get myself practiced on getting the anatomy down right. Barracuda. If you want to maintain the glasses in the salamander design, those could replace the eyes for expressions at certain angles. That's an interesting idea. I wonder. Let's actually take another look. I don't know about too many reptilian characters that have glasses. We'd need an we need a reference to exactly know how to depict that. Given that the eyes are mostly pointed on the sides of the head. Anyone know any characters off the top of their head? I think there was someone I saw in Owl House the other day who had a reptilian design and glasses to go with it. Could either function as eyes similar to Dexter. I absolutely love that trope. Uh, that's a particular favorite of mine, and I do plan on practicing my drawing more, in which that's probably how I'm going to doodle a more cartoon Xander, is having the glasses themselves function as the expressions, a la Dexter's Laboratory. Or have that anime reflection thing like Shinji's dad, if you want something easier. You mean like this? I said like that. Damn it. I changed all my key bindings. Apparently I didn't. Oh, nope, that's just the Gendo expression. Well, there's your Evangelion reference for the day. That was the full-blown expression. Where do I have just the glasses glowing? Left shift numpad 5. Doesn't seem to be functioning. Oh well. You'll just get a Gendo pose here for a moment. But that's definitely a big inspiration on the character design here. I look ridiculous. That's a very important part of the character design for me designing Xander about a year ago when I started getting into the VTubing thing. So the whole Shinji's dad thing, that's definitely in the vein of character design that we are fishing for. Just doodle somewhat of a figure here. Maybe get some rulers here. We'll go ahead and see if we can draw roughly a skeleton on Renmo here. Call that one, that layer the skeleton. I'm going to have that slightly off. I'm going to have some of the stuff slightly off the screen just to keep the taskbar hidden. Let's see. Looking at rough character proportions, that's a good size for the head right there. We've got the shoulders placed pretty high up on the body, interestingly enough. We'll try to get an estimate on the length of the spine there before getting into the legs. Wonder what's going on with that knee. Interesting. Get that as a general idea of the distance we should have on the arms and legs. Does he have 3 fingers or 4, it looks like? Now, as a guess, that's roughly the size that we could be looking at. So we have Xander's head here a little bit larger. Suppose we could scale that down a little bit just to use the existing art as some sort of a reference. Wrong layer selected, you fiend. Scale that boy down, make it roughly comparable in size. I think maybe a little bit bigger. Brainiac character deserves a big head. So off of that, what are we looking at? I think I'm just going to go with a regular stand, so no dramatic poses here. At least for the moment, because we are spending most of this time brainstorming. About, let's see here. Look at our comparison, and I think cutting it off right about there might do good for spine length. Seems to fit mostly with the rest of the figure. Shoulders. They're a little bit close to the head, but we are going to need to make room for the lab coat here, which actually I think I'm going to go ahead and try to doodle that figure somewhat on a different layer. Name our layers responsibly over there. We'll go for Xander's sketch right there for just somewhat of the figure. And let's see. Lab coat needs to have the collar up. That's an interesting idea. What do you think? Should it be something a bit more villainous where the lab coat collar just sort of comes up past the head, and then you have it drooping down on the other side, somewhat almost vampiric in its appearance, having the collar just fly up like that, or in reference to my character itself, to my character design, comes up just about the base of the head, so something a bit less sinister looking. Let's try something like that. Oh, wait. That's an interesting idea. What's the name? Barracuda, if there's anyone that could help me, it would be you. What's the name of those lizards that have the frills around their neck? The ones that, I don't know if they're exclusive to some old dinosaurs, like the ones you see in Jurassic Park, that have the frills around their neck that flare out. What are those things called? That's actually another. Okay, I think we are kind of settling on a reptilian design that generally fits best with a character archetype here because there's plenty of different reptiles for us to be looking at. Frilled lizard. Okay, I suppose it's exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah, exactly, those guys. We'll just drop that boy on the images here. That's low resolution, get rid of that thing. See, that's a picture of me having an existential crisis doing the screaming like that. Ooh, that's a wonderful pic. Oh, you don't give me a 403. The boy is literally just called a frilled lizard. That's an interesting idea to draw from. Not sure exactly how we could depict the lab coat in that way. Maybe. Let's get ourselves a reference on the shoulders themselves because those probably aren't going to be changing. Get it right about. Have them slump a little bit. That's just generally a good way to draw nerdy characters is with somewhat slumped shoulders. We'll use that as a start. I wonder if we could just draw the lab coat coming up like this. But once it starts... draw it just a little bit more convex. Once it gets up to the neck, though, maybe have it just wildly flare out. Sort of like a frilled lizard. Huh. Not necessarily that the character in question would be a frilled lizard, but we already know that the Rivals of Aether character design tends to have a bit of freedom. Right here, we're seeing a tree wolf. And Eliana is actually pretty standard for a snake. She's just piloting a mech. But for those of you unfamiliar with Rivals of Aether, we have another character named Orcane. Shouldn't type while talking at the same time. That's a little rough. Which is a very bizarre dog whale thing. Don't you have a bigger picture for me? No, that's a bit of a gruesome, realistic image, but it looks like that's kind of official right there. So that's another character design that's a little weird we have out of Rivals of Aether. Obviously supposed to be some sort of an orca, but at the same time mixed with a dog figure. And in the story itself, Orcane never speaks any English. Instead has more of animalistic behavior in a furry environment where most of them are anthropomorphized. So we could definitely mix a few different sort of character design inspirations here. You know, I might as well bring up the wiki on the side. Rivals of Aether wiki. Take a look at that. What are our other oddball characters? Most of them seem to be pretty standard onto one sort of character design. Lions, hyenas, and they look exactly as they're supposed to. Maple, I think, is a weasel or ferret. I suppose in that case we are just granted a bit more of our artistic freedom, and we can mix together a number of different reptilian designs into our character here. I don't like the sight of you without eyes, so let's just doodle a little pupil in there. Give him a little smirk. Not there. Turn Ramo back on. I know he's smug. It's drawn all the way across his face. Give him a little swoop right there across the center, and then give them just a little bit of a smirk there. That looks ridiculous. I love it. But we are starting out on learning our art progress here. Nothing yet to write home about. I just drew that on the completely wrong layer. No, just that part of it. That's another thing I'll have to get used to is making sure I can keep everything on the right layers together. I'll just merge that down. We're sketching. We're not drawing any official art here. What do you think about the lab coat frilling out like that? I mean, it sort of already does on my own character design, so I guess it's not too different. Go ahead and get our shoulders started right here. It's still going to be very obviously be a lab coat, though. I'm not going to try to make it implied that it's actually part of a frilled lizard setup. Get our skeleton visible again. Plantigrade. Interesting. Oh. So in that case, let's look at those lines. Get a little bit started for the hips there, and then I think we can go ahead and just do some larger swipes here. And that'll do. A little tall and a little lanky, but that also helps with the characterization here. It's mostly stick figures for now. Kayla, welcome back on your own account instead of stealing Isaac's. Sorry we're not doing the snow leopard yet, but I think that's something for us to look at later. Right now, I'm definitely very interested in the reptile idea. I think I'm going to focus on that for a little bit. At least until we have something started here. So, got a bit of a color flaring out there. Wonder what other things we definitely need to be doing for a lizard-specific design here. Does Salamander Xander wear pants? This is sort of a furry-focused and funny animal franchise, so... We already have characters like Forsburn and Zetterburn, which aren't wearing very much on their person at all. Let me get a bit of a better pick of Zetterburn. I think they did update his sprites for the definitive edition that we've been playing. Ain't that cute. Yeah, we'll go ahead and steal that art. Looks like that's someone's from Twitter. Drop that there. This is another one of the character designs we have existing. I don't know why he's on fire there. Or something must be burning his biscuits. Kayla, this is still really cool so far. Snow leopards could be later, maybe. I really like the snow leopard idea, but we are going to see the easiest option first. And I do personally have more of an affinity for cats than I do for reptiles. So we might try that later, especially given how many good feline designs they already have in Rivals so far. Late again, but you are here, Broham, and we haven't gotten too deep into things yet. Sushi Fairy. I like to imagine the frilled lizard getting mad, flaring and yelling, "The bell does not dismiss you," of course. Is that my characterization at this point? I'll be reduced to a catchphrase after enough time. This is the last you'll see of Xander. By the time that I have 1,000 subscribers, it's only going to be the same memes over and over again. You know what? Let me change my key bindings over here. Yeah, you can see part of that interface at least. You can't see my other secret expressions yet. But I already shut off the Gendo pose. That one was really the secret to be kept. Set that to none. Now are you going to work? Indeed, you are. I'm going to withhold off on the class not dismissing you line. Maybe not for now. But I will keep that very important toggle. I wonder how we implement that, though. There's definitely room for the whole glowing, shiny, scary glasses thing. Does Salamander Xander have eye beams? We'll have to find a reason for that to be the case, but that's definitely very possible. Perfect catchphrase. Well, I'm not sure if perfect's the right word. I try to be a bit more open and inviting of a teacher rather than stern. Mostly the case is people are allowed to come and go as they please. After all, no one's going to learn a lesson if they're not, or you're never going to teach someone a lesson unless they're willing to learn. But some people would prefer the stern teacher approach, at least. Secretly wanting Xander to be a mean, authoritative professor. Well, if you get out, or, if we have a large enough audience and that seems to be the democratic conclusion, then I'm willing to play a somewhat different spin on this character. I was a theater kid, of course. That's one reason that I'm interested in the whole VTubing thing. Acting is a very well-enjoyed pastime of mine. Let's see, get that bent off to the side. I'll have that going around in the back. I need someone to answer the pants question. What do other people think? Oh, right, that's the whole thing I was going on before I took a different spin. So Zetterburn here that we see as the main character of the game only wears a loincloth. We're already pretty well accustomed to characters not wearing much clothing in Rivals. And I think the same applies to Forsburn as well. Yeah, Forsburn also wears just a loincloth and a cape. Orkane, I think. Oh no, Orkane and Maple are both not wearing any clothes at all. So I think we can do the funny pantsless cartoon animal. Ha 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 ha. As another joke, I'm not going to do another reveal here. But if you look at the prior streams, there was a reveal that the Xander model does not actually have legs. Once I get to doing drawing stuff better myself, I did have the ideas to be drawing my own character model, and that one will actually contain legs. Also, I really don't know what to do below the belt for this character design. Maybe some lame khaki pants or something, but this isn't Crazy Frog. It's not Crazy Frog. This is a reptile, not an amphibian. I think we can start trying to get rid. Once we have a bit of a better perspective on a general character shape. What was the question anyway? You think you missed it? So we are designing a character for Rivals of Aether, which mostly has funny animal characterizations. Right here on the right, you have Ramo, who is another one of the characters in there, and mostly what we are using to reference our own character design. The question is, does Reptile Xander wear pants? Clothing can signal refinement. Thoughts? The lab coat's definitely staying on, and so is definitely the tie. Having just a lab coat and tie and nothing else is definitely weird, though. Alright, we'll give him pants. Recall Crazy Frog did not wear pants. Yes, because in half the videos he had a appendage down there that some of them censored out. What's a good belt line? About right there. We'll just draw ourselves some sort of area where I don't know how to do clothing ripples too well yet. We'll just keep the design roughly angular from now, I think. Maybe keep those a little bit thinner. Da 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 da. This lizard wears pants. At least until we decide otherwise. Definitely would help codify him as a bit of a more civilized character. I wonder if there actually is any room for that in the universe itself. Might be a little easier to just draw simple enough pant legs instead as well. Don't want to over-design. That is a very good perspective. We'll see if we have to ditch them later. Given that we've got a bit of a character frame, we can start trying to work on getting rid of that skeleton. If you have criticisms about my workflow, please let me know, because I don't know how to get the drawing setup done well yet. I think everyone watching here is actually an artist, except for Kayla. Well, what an interesting crowd we have for the stream, then. Let's see. Look over there off to the side. Get our lab coat started. How far down do lab coats go anyway? I have to look up the royalty-free music for next time. That would definitely help with the background noise. Lab coats going around to just above the knees, it looks like in most cases. Straightforward enough. Get that settled, have that drip around in the back. Everyone is an artist, even Kayla. I'll let Kayla comment on that part. Definitely artists in their own ways, but maybe not necessarily in the drawing medium. I guess we don't need to see that showing on the other side. We could just set that there. Guess if we really wanted to make it look right, draw the line through and then erase the middle. That way we have a better reference on exactly where the lab coat is supposed to begin or end. I think in terms of character design in Rivals of Aether, we can definitely go with just barefoot. Lab coats go mid-thigh. Yeah, that's about right. Get that started. That's a start. A little clumsy. That's why it looks so weird, because I don't have this part actually ending. Okay, so now it actually looks a bit more like a real coat. Somewhat. Needs some work. Oh, yes, you are, but I just don't know it. Oh, well then. We have an entire artist circle in the chat tonight. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Start getting on erasing that stuff. Get that out of the way. If I remembered to actually keep it on a separate layer, I would have. Ranma doesn't really have a neck. His head sort of continues into his shoulders. And looking at our little salamander boy here, it seems that's mostly the same case for him as well. So we're not going to do too much of a focus on a neck, and instead, just let his neck kind of continue like that. Huh. The weird Xander hair is definitely an interesting part of the character design, but I don't know if there's really a way or an excuse to implement that on a lizard. Huh. There are those old dinosaurs that have the little mohawk ridges on their head. That's an interesting idea. I think so long as we just have maybe some little bits of red towards the top, we can get the same colors kind of implied. Something like that. Maybe for a joke, have the little swirl actually somewhat on above his nose right there, as more of a skin pattern rather than some sort of extra frills on top of the head there. Take another drink. Has it been an hour already? Interesting progress so far. I think we can get rid of the snow leopard part at least. We'll leave that up there for later. It's just doodling time. Lab coat looks a little off-centered. Chest comes around right there, and so I think we can, just because I'm a perfectionist, make that match the middle of the chest a little bit better and come down to right about here. Or I could reflect the coloring in the scales on the head. Definitely. I'm thinking that's what we'll be going for. Disappear those shoulders a little bit. And in the future, just keep them on separate layers, now that I think about it. Lab coat looks a lot better like that. Adjust the angles a little bit. Alright, what are we at now? And just give some little semblance of a belt buckle here in the middle. Da, 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 and give it the little notch. Give it a bit more of a notch. Use a thinner pencil and give it that notch. When the sketch is the line art, well, I don't know how to sketch yet, and it's definitely too rough to be the actual lines itself, so I'm just kind of. I mean, I already said I don't really know what a workflow is, so I can't really say I'd be able to just do some scribbles and then get a good example of what we're doing off of there. And I am getting a little bit too obsessed over getting some of the lines right, so maybe we can dial that back a little bit. And I think we can go barefoot for the character designs. That's pretty standard, and it's necessary for a lot of sort of furry or animal type characters that you have the feet, which are definitely very important to animal designs there. It's a little lopsided in it. Don't worry, you never sketch. Thank you, Broham. He's got my back. I also definitely need to actually figure out a workflow. Those are gecko looking feet, but then again, we can't really make much of a difference in telling between the salamander otherwise, right? I think that will also suffice. Let's look at more salamander pics. It's just going to be National Geographic right here, isn't it? Except half of them are just looking at cartoon animals. Why are they all the same salamander? I thought there were multiple different kinds of salamander, not just this black and yellow guy over and over again. Yeah, I'm going to have salamander feet pics in my search history. Congratulations. Wouldn't be the weirdest thing. Also, I'm getting a lot of axolotl pictures. I thought they would have been completely different. Your process is very relatable. You're also a perfectionist, and you try to tell yourself to stop trying to make the sketch perfect. Um, I'm thinking maybe some art streams in the future. You can definitely see my progress as an artist and learning a bit of a better workflow. I am absolutely perfectionist, and that's usually what gets me stagnated on trying to learn a lot of things. I did see a tweet from someone earlier today about how one of their. Oh, that's an excellent picture right there. About how one of their prior teachers had the very important quotation to give of anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Let's just create new from clipboard. Here we go. Look at his little feetsies. Adorable boy. Three toes? Looks like that. Or at least that's what's mostly visible. Sketches are pretty messy. You've been working on making them cleaner. We all have different workflows to go through. But I was already distracted. I was distracted by salamander feet. Um, Anything worth doing is worth doing badly, so feel free to watch me embarrass myself on stream, and once you've had a good laugh, understand the bit of humility that will necessarily come with it. I'm doing a different layer for this, but let's go ahead and do another idea. Laughing out loud, that's so freaking funny. Let's talk about my search history then. Uh, the thing is, I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine, which doesn't keep a history. So I don't even know what my history is. I just know I've searched for weirder things in the past. Xander sketch right there. Let's just call this glasses. Wonder if we can just set them on top right there. I wonder if they'd have to be at an angle or if we could just go ahead and yoink, yoink, yoink. That kind of looks hilarious, but I feel like that actually subtracts from the characterization. Given the lab coat, he definitely looks nerdy enough, and trying to fit glasses on eyes like the side like that might not work too well. I'll play with that a bit more in the future. The other important part is we need to look at the resolution of these character sprites and get something around in that area. Rivals of Aether sprite sheet. I think they hover around 32 pixels squared, right? Or is it 64? Take that, create new from clipboard. We'll need to get all the character sprites roughly to match with the existing ones there, although there are double resolution sprites. There's people who have taken, say, King of Fighters or Guilty Gear XX sprites and have matched them in there. There is actually a way with the Rivals of Aether coding base to scale the character models differently. We see Rastar here has the goggles, which are represented with just 4x4 circles. So we might not have that much room to be drawing very large glasses, do we? Remo isn't on this picture. Do we have another lizard to look at? Why not just get a picture of him and see if we can just doodle some little glasses on him? You got a sprite sheet for me? That would be a help. No, no. Looks like not. But if we're going off of the standard eyeball size of everyone else, we might not have too much room to do that. But we'll save that for once we get to the actual spriting phase. Oh, and by the way, there will definitely be a stream in the future where we try to figure out how to actually do this sprite stuff. Anyone here work with pixel art specifically? I know everyone here is an artist, but I don't know who does pixel specific stuff. Ah, put it back where it came from. Lizard feet, lizard feet, lizard feet. Doodle that little guy, just real fucking do that, do ah. Well, I know I'm definitely not looking at the lizard feet pics for their attractiveness, that's for sure. You've done pixel art, James. Interesting. Do you have any examples you'd like to share, or is that just a history lesson? Who else do I know? I've known some other folk that have done pixel art, and I have in the past myself. I've had a history of trying to implement some sort of game design stuff before, and so we are going to have to figure out how to do some sort of character art, and we'll get a few keyframes and poses here. You've got decent pixel experience. You did it for fun for a while. I might actually ask for your assistance, Broham, if you have anything you'd love to teach me. Let's get back to just finishing up the little sketch here. I've drawn on the wrong layer again. I just keep getting distracted. I really should just start doodling throughout the rest of the evenings. Though usually after stream happens, I just kind of zone out for an hour and go to bed. But you'll notice the streaming setup here is pretty minimalistic. I don't have an intro card or an outro card or intermissions, any of those other stuff, and the chat that's showing up in the bottom left is a pre-existing template. Given my perfectionism and sort of a DIY complex, I've been waiting a while to try to figure out exactly what I want to do for an intro card. I've seen a lot of people just commission pretty simple and straightforward things from a bunch of graphic artists out there, but I'd prefer having a bit of a personal spin here. Huh. Using pixels for that would actually be an interesting idea. That fits with the programmer aspect for a little bit. Take a drink. Well, I don't have any image of what he'd necessarily be doing for a pose. So I think we can go ahead and just... Ooh, what about a sassy hands on hips? The stern look of the teacher who sees that you haven't completed your homework, and he's about to get out the ruler. There is that. Why do I do this? Is that the stern teacher you're looking for? Oh, so I see you neglected to do your homework. I assigned it a week ago, and it takes you about an hour to do. Don't make me get my ruler. Get in some little folds there. Mostly did pixel animations, though it can be tedious. But luckily, Rivals of Aether has some pretty low resolution stuff. It's definitely high order, but we do have some references from existing art that we can draw from. That's terrible. And at least in this way, we don't necessarily have to be drawing too in depth of the hands, but how do you curl lizard fingers? Don't really have very many references there, do you? Fuck it. We'll just have them doing that. And over here. There, that's a bit more sketch-like, at least. Somewhat. Getting some examples of fingers going on right there, but you know it's basically supposed to be same as the feet over there. A simple start. Why not? Let's see what we can do. Start from exactly where we're supposed to be going. That bends a little bit too much. Ooh, I like that. Coming up roughly behind the eyes. That's an interesting idea, having it something kind of like a frilled lizard. We'll just draw from several reptilian inspirations here. Does anyone actually just wear, like, normal clothes in this universe? They all seem to have some sort of fantasy outfits, and Ranmo here at least has his yoga pants. Or whatever kind of pants those are. Crag doesn't wear clothes either. In fact, most of them don't. You know what would be interesting is looking at the workshop characters and seeing who else has sets of clothes on themselves. Most subscribed. Most of these are derivative of existing IPs. I shouldn't be showing that stuff on stream. Ah, most of the Rivals of Aether characters don't wear clothes. I wonder if just the lab coat would be funny enough. Well, that's what we'll test. And the important part is once we have a general direction, we will need to focus a lot on getting the sprites done. think I think for the sprites I'm going to get something started off stream, and then sometime in the future we'll look at correcting the little details here and there to make sure that something works. That person's wearing Jury's pants from Street Fighter. Saw that frilled lizards are in Australia. It's time for my Australian accent again. What do we do? No, I don't think I'm gonna embarrass myself with that. I don't even know what an Australian accent sounds like unless I'm quoting something directly. Yeah, most of the character designs we have here on the workshop are mostly just meme characters. May or may not have example sent me an example of your pixels on Twitter. I will look at that off stream, definitely. Hmm. So we have a start for a character design here. Give him. I like the tie. I think the tie is actually an important part of the character design, so might as well. It's an aperture tie, which is the very weird circular shape there. Of course, you're going to notice it looks like the Aperture Science logo, or well, derived from the actual word aperture itself. I, okay, I like that. I think the tie definitely completes the design. I don't think we need to focus on doing the little buttons. We can just leave that on the. Those would have to be represented by individual pixels each, and I don't think that's going to work on these character sprites. So I think we can leave off the buttons and just leave the lab coat on here. Ah, Fid, welcome. We are trying to settle something for a Rivals of Aether character design further down the line. There's actually not a single frog in this picture, I don't think. What was Ramo anyway? He was a. No, Ramo is a tree frog, that's right. Funny how frogs look so reminiscent of lizards and geckos. Those feet and hands don't look very different. Hmm. All right, Le Froge, or however you'd supposed to pronounce that butchered abomination of a word. There, you get a bit of a French accent right there. Mostly because I don't remember off the top of my head what Australian is supposed to sound like. And if I did, well, I'd butcher that even further. That's a character start. What we can definitely work on now. We have an idea on a character figure. We can definitely swap that out with a snow leopard in the future. Or something else feline. I think feline definitely would let the glasses work, and having a feline face with glasses definitely sounds hilarious. We'll have to do both and see what ultimately makes the difference here. We'll save that. I'm going to move that off of this screen for a little bit so you don't see my folders. We'll just put that as Rivals of Aether, Xander sketch. Just as an example, and we'll come around to play with that in a moment. Didn't want you to see all the various little pictures I put together to make my thumbnails. French accent. All right, fine. I'll give you the. Since we did mention Dexter's Laboratory earlier, I will give you the. Hold on. Drink first. Hit him with a omelette du fromage. That was horrible. But they'll eat it up anyway. I definitely think the tie does make a big difference as well. I don't think there's a way you can put the tie on there without also having the other clothes, though. The tie is very important, and I think we can definitely fix that in with a few pixels, yeah. Looking at the other references here, that can definitely work. So I think we are going to have to keep the pants and the shirt. But overall, they do have very simplistic designs on top of that. I mean, you can see that Ranmo here, for example, has his little bits of cloth along with his pants. Very simple. Eliana and Sylvanos here have a little bit of detail, and similarly, Xander here doesn't have too much going on with the pants or the coat. We're not going to worry about the buttons, so it's just going to have the lab coat, pants, and the tie to go along with it. I have not done. Fine, hold on. Let me mute myself real quick. I gotta make sure that works. Hold on. I'm gonna need to run through that a few different times. You have Anji and Gold Lewis. Why not a snow leopard and a lizard salamander frog? An amalgamation of various reptilians. Interesting idea, but I'm going to try to focus on one character for Rivals of Aether unless I absolutely fall in love with it. When it comes to modding stuff, I'm actually going to think about trying to focus on character designs for other stuff. I will start small. I have in the pipeline some research towards. I'm just going to pop back up on here real quick. I do have some research towards at least modifying one of Gold Lewis's palettes to add more of a Xander appearance, and I might do that for Anji as well. But it is a very big undertaking making one character for Rivals of Aether. I don't know just yet about trying to make two. But a very big burly snow leopard actually sounds like a wonderful idea. We have Italas here, the polar bear, as one of the other heavies. And I do very much love heavy characters. Hold on. Hold on. Give me a second. This is going to hurt me. This is going to hurt my pride. No, I'm hearing myself echo way too much in here. It is there. Hold on. Is there a specific Eggman quote you need? I'm only going to take one of his existing quotes. And no, pissing on the moon does not count. I was thinking about a the more the merrier, but it's hurting me. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if you're ready yet. Have a democratic vote. Okay, I'll humiliate myself with one Eggman quote, whatever all of you vote on. However many of you actually know an Eggman quote to drop. So, now that we have at least a framework to work on for a character design himself, mostly that was just redrawing pretty much the same outfit. The biggest focus we had here was making sure we knew what to do about feet, hands, and face. And I think that's a very good eye shape for us to go with. In general, head facial structure. You don't have any memory in the memory card. Hold on, I'll have to listen to that one. Is that actually on YouTube somewhere? You don't have enough memory on the memory card. Hold on. I'll have to deafen everything, make sure that doesn't play over the speakers. I'd get a copyright strike for that. If you want Eggman, do the iconic ones like Time for a Change of Pace and Get a Load of it. Okay, that's definitely a good perspective there. Desktop audio is muted, right? I'll just watch through that real quick. Oh no, that's just an absolute meme blasting me in the ears. Thank you. My ears are bleeding. Alright, I'll rehearse that a couple of times off the screen here. Unmute the desktop audio, and actually, I don't know why I have desktop even playing at all. There shouldn't be anything going through there. Mute the mic. I gotta hear it. I gotta replicate it. I'm gonna have to recite that a few more times. I don't know if I can do it. Oh, well, just give me a moment to subtly prepare myself. So, I'm going to distract you and hope that you forget when I talk about the other important part that once we have a character design here, we are definitely going to need to focus on a stop defaulting to 160 text size. We are going to need to talk about a character move set. Now, you'll notice on my Twitter page, for example, I tend to throw the atom symbol around a lot, which I'm not necessarily restricted to. You'll also see it's, yeah, there it is, one of my closest chest pins. The little cutesy buttons attempting to make me look more approachable as a teacher. And I guess we could go with some sort of atomic fusion stuff there. Only character I can think of that's done that before in a fighting game would be Oku from Toho. I don't. Does anyone know off the top of their head if there's other atomic fusion based characters in other fighting games? Maybe someone from Injustice. Take your time, you were doing a goof. Honestly, Fid is probably on the right track. It might just have to be one of his boss lines before. I've tried reciting them a few times, and doesn't sound right to me. Of course, the longer I talk, the worse my voice is going to get. So, we're mostly going to be talking about text stuff here. In reference to, say, some older characters, I do like the mechanics of overheating stuff. Hold on. Let's actually look at Rivals of Aether itself. Give that a smaller window in the window. Going to need to add another window for that one. Create a new one. And give me that Rivals of Aether. And make it tiny. I said tiny. Get the controller out there, and we can definitely look at some of the movesets that are in here for inspiration. Plug the damn controller in. Make that small. Oh, wow, that's going to show up on that display anyway. Move that over here. And make the window smaller. Display, blah, 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 graphics. There we go. 1x. And it's back on that window again for some reason. That's weird. How do you make that a little bit bigger? Move it behind my beautiful face. And just fit that roughly down the bottom center. And we'll take a few looks at the stuff in here. See if we can get some examples. In terms of moveset design, you've only really seen me play Strive so far. I usually try to play somewhat balanced characters, but usually trading a little bit of range or a little bit of neutral for extra damage. Anji, for example, is a balanced character, but he does have excess health and some very high damage combos for a character, despite being well rounded otherwise. Broham, I know I have fought in the past on Guilty Gear plenty of times. And, well, he's seen that nonsense going on with Slayer. High power, but he trades not having any projectiles for, well, punching you in the face and then there's half your health gone. Practice, that's what they call it. They don't call it training mode in here. Now, the heavy characters in this game would be Etalis, Crag, and Sylvanos. I guess Sylvanos is kind of a heavy. Other than that, Eliana definitely has a lot of the character style I would be looking for. Having an overheat system and the projectiles, which you have the rockets you steer around, you have a rocket punch, and then you have the overheat meter, which would make your smash attacks do fire damage instead of just steam. Normally it's just steam that'll let you vent a little bit of heat, but that's a mechanic that was also on RoboKai, which I haven't done too much playing on Guilty Gear XX, Broham. I don't think you've seen my RoboKai too much. Don't worry, he's far less scary than the other characters, even if he is a little unorthodox. He had a similar system in which some of his attacks became more powerful as he started to overheat. But if he got to maximum overheat, he'd explode. It's very reminiscent of Nagaryuki in Strive, where he builds up his blood gauge, and his attacks don't get more powerful, but his heavy slash moves actually get more range. A little hard to see. But the closer he is to maximum blood rage, the better his moves are at the expense of teetering on the edge of self destruction. And I think that's a mechanic I could definitely get by. I like playing high risk, high reward sorts of characters. Gold Lewis, for example, can turn the tide of a match with a 75% damage combo, but you'll see how very easily he gets stuck into the corner and then starts losing from there. Eliana isn't particularly penalized from overheating, though. That will rid you of your special attacks, but it doesn't necessarily hurt you or make you weaker. It does open up a few different moveset opportunities with the fact that now you do fire damage from your you do explosive fire damage from your smash attacks. So we have something to reference here, but it's not too perfect. Alright, fine. Might as well get it over with. Get a character with a robot, and if you got a rocket punch, you gotta drop him with a "Get a load of this!" Oh wow, I peeked the mic. Alright, there you go. I'm going to try to avoid doing that again. Though I'm lying. I will definitely practice that and try to give you a better impression in the future. I can't remember his inflection for the time for a change of pace. Or maybe what is it? I can't remember the full reconnaissance line from the movie. That was a very good impression by, that was Jim Carrey, wasn't it? He makes a very wonderful Eggman. Better than me. Well, thank you, Kayla. Although I'm not sure you know exactly what an Eggman impression is supposed to sound like. Have you been playing Sonic games? You almost missed it. Well, there's always going to be the VOD, so you can always scroll back here and see me hurt myself again and again and again. Okay, so it is Rhino. Interesting name. Excellent. Was getting up to use the bathroom. Oh, well, I'm glad you actually caught it at that moment then. I wonder if there's a way we could zoom in a bit more. Doesn't look like there's a zoom button on here. But here's a very good character reference for us to look for in terms of size and general shape. Rano, I didn't have a chance to show off, but he's more of a. You know how many Sonic games you watched for years and years and years? I know exactly. I know exactly, Kayla. I'm just trying to keep the identity of my viewers a secret in general. Or, at the very least, ambiguous. So, we have our ninja frog, who's supposed to be mostly the Sheik function in this game. You'll see he has some very weird tilt attacks that. The down tilt's pretty normal, but the side tilt is 2 hits, and then the up tilt moves him backwards. On top of that, I think he has. Yeah, he has a very similar to Sheik sort of down air, but it does function a little bit different. Forward air is weird. And his whole gimmick is he has the poison projectiles he builds up. And then once your opponent has those poison stacks on them, they take damage when they try to attack back. Allegedly, he's supposed to be some sort of a pacifist, but I guess making your opponent hurt themselves by trying to hit you back is definitely going to make it suck. What else is there? He's got the frog. Yeah, he's a tree frog, so he's got the tongue, and then one of his other attacks is trapping your opponent in a bubble. Move forward. Then you can start wailing on them there. But you'll see they managed to get his character sprite hunched over a little bit in order to get him to fit. He's fairly average among the size of characters in the roster. We can definitely look at his sprites and seeing how he animates to try to get some reference. Largest characters in the game, though, are going to be Sylvanos and Etalas. Sylvanos' animation is a little bit better, but you can see he has an absolutely ginormous sprite in comparison. Twice as wide, not about roughly the same on tallness. There we go, that's a big polar bear. So that's beyond the limit, roughly, of what we're wanting to do for character size. We can definitely do a sort of tall standing character that would definitely be different, but you'll notice that a lot of characters in this game, if we look at our sprite sheet over here for some of the earlier ones, all of them except for Absa and to a lesser extent Rastar, you'll see most of them are sort of crouching down, so we might have to do a sort of hunchback Igor, bring me the brain sort of scientist bit. Zetterburn's kind of standing straight, but Forsburn's arched forward. It's going to be interesting. We don't have too many pixels to play with. He's going to pacify his opponents by beating them into a vegetable state. Probably how pacifism works, right? I mean, off of a technicality, that's definitely what could go. Let's see. We have a. I also found out what we needed. We needed the workshop button on, and then we could actually use these characters. I kind of want to look at that Ramlethal again, see how tall she is in comparison. Compared to, say, Absa is the character standing straight up and tallest, at least. Ramlethal's tiny, but you can see they at least had some decent representation of her coat there. So you might have more pixels to work with than it might initially look. I think we can go ahead and try to have some sort of a standing straight up character, and I think that will work. I think we can leave that on the side for now. Now, what else are we looking at? Character moveset. So, if we are having a scientific sort of character, we're looking for a scientific moveset design. Wonder if there's anything in the workshop we can draw from there. Take another drink. Ah, people are putting in more human characters. That's definitely something else to be looking at. It might be very possible for us to do a human character, if that is anyone else's suggestion. Seems like they're fitting some very nice character designs into so few pixels. Now, off of anyone who has some insight into the idea, would anyone have a suggestion on, say, if we're going for a rushdown or a zoner or a balance type or power specific? In terms of character functions I tend to obsess over, I did mention well-rounded with power. Let's look at the other favorites and see what stuff we can draw from. Get that text back down to half size and stop defaulting to 160, please. So we already know from Strive we have Anji and Gold Lewis. Gold Lewis having some scientific basis in his kit with having the drones, the minigun. Not necessarily with the Behemoth Typhoon stuff, but a character that has little gadgets they're pulling out of their back pockets definitely works as well. Let's look for stylistic influences. We can definitely go for potentially atomic fusion of a sort. Or fission, just nuclear power. We'll use that instead of atomic. Uh, there's definitely room for the sort of Iron Man loads of gadget stuff, so the sort of characters that pull out various little devices and inventions for them to throw at you, little ray guns or whatever other little tools you have in the back pocket. Let's see what else. Electricity is definitely another common trope of science characters. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. It's not having the best results. Electricity. There we go. Now, also on the lizard bit, if we are doing a salamander character, we can have fire as one of the mythical sort of relations to it. The salamander is traditionally associated with myths of having fire powers. I actually looked this one up today. I was thinking about salamander related things, and it turns out they like to hide inside logs. And so a lot of ancient civilizations would burn logs and notice salamanders emitting from the logs, but only when there's fire. So there was sort of an association that the fire itself would be creating the salamanders coming out of the logs. Mostly because they didn't know the exact bits of checking in the log itself to make sure it wasn't already housing a few lizards. A ray gun, better go revive him. Well, we'll see. I do like the idea of rocket punches, although that's already on Aliana, so we might not get to use that. Definitely enjoyed that lightning spell in Noida. Absolutely. Um, a bit of history is that is generally my fixation in a lot of games. You'll notice, what is it? The pen on my right side, which should be on your left, just under the atom, that is an ohm, which is supposed to represent some sort of electrical engineering. That's the symbol for electric resistance, and usually if you give me some choice of element in video games, I will, at the first sight, fixate on whatever gives me electric stuff. You know, we have Kai in Strive, but I'm not going to play someone just for electric powers, especially considering how boring Kai is. There will eventually be a Pokemon playthrough on this chat, or if everyone here definitely would suggest it earlier, I could definitely do a Pokemon related stream very soon, if y'all would like to see that. But I usually try to fixate on having some electric type as my favorite. So that's definitely very likely on the list. If we are going for, say, the inventor route, that does open us up to pretty much all these other options. One idea I did think about the other day was rocket boots for an up B. Create an explosion under your feet and then see if you can try to land on someone, sort of like rocket jumping in Team Fortress 2. It's another option that's usually associated with science characters, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a chemist. There might. Uh, let's ditch that. I was going to write poison down here, but we literally have that in Radmo already there. We also have specific character fixations on fire from Zetterburn and electricity from Absa, so if we're doing either of those powers, we might try to dial those down a little bit. That leaves us mostly trying to focus on these two. We'll bold those. Now then, looking at the characters I'm playing, We have Anji and Goldlewis, so those are mostly well-rounded but power-fixated characters. In Rivals of Aether itself, I'm already playing Eliana and Clarion, although that's mostly for their aesthetics rather than knowing which character functions I like the most. I think we might end up going with a relatively sort of agile bait and punish character. Given that we have a lanky lizard boy, it would be a character who's mostly spending his match schmoving around on the screen trying to avoid you, and then punishing a mistake. It is really, really fun to help me develop this character. Go team. Absolutely. I have mentioned in the past that game design is one of my interests, and that's actually pretty much the only reason I ever wanted to start trying to draw, was doing exactly this, trying to focus on some sort of character design. Being able to sketch up character design for uses in, say, fighting game development, and then having the ability to draw some animation direction to help an animator get the rest of the work done. I've done some animating work in the past in high school, but it didn't really have too promising of a future. I might learn that in the future. Who knows? We'll see whatever else we can invent on this channel. First and foremost, though, stick with what you know. So, for me, I'm mostly going to be programming and playing fighting games. Or roguelikes. Strive, we have Anji and Goldlewis. Rivals of Aether, we have Eliana and Clarion. What else are we looking at? Well, why not look at the Steam library and see what other stuff I have here? Soul Calibur, I play Yoshimitsu, which also fits into sort of a trickster archetype. We're typing in the wrong window. So that also fits into a confusion and sort of punish character. I think that's generally what we're looking for here. A character that has decent movement and tries to punish you into attacking at the wrong time or whiffing an attack and then having a punish to do off of that. But we need to know specifically how to make a character that's punish-focused rather than, say, rushdown or grappler-focused. Who are the other rushdown characters we have? Why not boot up the game again and see what we can look at for the characters here? Oblivion. I have played Oblivion a lot on this channel, but that doesn't necessarily fit into the confines of, say, a fighting game. We're mostly looking for fighting game references here. Head back into the practice mode here. I wonder who is the designated punish character. Move that off to the side since we have a dedicated window for it. I think that actually might even apply to Clarion having the spacing specifically on her. I think Clarion's female. Clarion having the tipper attacks, so you need to hit exactly where someone is to get the bonus damage. Get back where I put you. Alright, so taking a look at that specifically. If someone misses an attack versus Clarion, you'll notice from the Rivals of Aether stream a few nights ago, that's generally how I was fighting. Trying to do a lot of dodging and movement, and once someone missed, you have the tipper, the very tip of the sword, which will cause that blue glow and the electric effects when you hit someone. So we might borrow that sort of character attack. I think there is a flag that you can set in the game to make it to where your attack's stunned, so we might go ahead and bring up that electricity bit in having certain attacks start a combo or have a very good finisher punch there. So we're looking at maybe very small hitboxes on certain attacks so that you need to know specifically where and when you hit someone once they miss an attack and can't dodge it. Understand that I'm looking for fighting references, but what you do choose to use the most, what are your go-to moves when I game? I mean, we did mention that previously. We were focusing on lightning bolts once we got into Oblivion, so we're definitely needing to do some sort of electric focus here and there. I don't think that has any mythological correlation with lizards. Funny enough, beetles actually are associated with lightning in a lot of religions, or folklores even. You'll see that reflected in a lot of Digimon, for example. There's an entire family line of beetles which are known for having electric attacks. So we are going to want to look for small, specific high-power hitboxes to use. And then we're going to steal the plasma mechanic from Clarion right here. Probably. I guess, in that case, looking at, say, for example, heading back to the template here, we have in XX, there is Slayer here, who's the character I play the most, and I did show him on one of my previous streams before. Strive, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I was mostly complaining about Anji lacking a lot of his important tools in Strive. So if we are going for a bait and punish style character, looking at the characters that historically have had that in Smash games, Captain Falcon being another favorite of mine. In Ultimate and Smash 4, his playstyle generally is doing the same thing, where he's running around on the screen, trying to get you to whiff the wrong attack, and then he punishes you for it. So you need small and strong attacks. You need to be able to start some sort of a punish combo, using a very precise attack that you can only throw in once your opponent is standing in place and not moving around everywhere. These cannot be attacks that you just randomly throw out. So we'll need to focus on some specific attacks that maybe a down air or forward air that we use to punish someone who's missed something. We also need to be able to try to goad someone into chasing after us, so maybe a few evasive movement tools. Very good, and having a few extra movement options to get us out of danger, and being able to skid around our opponent for a punish. I think we have an example there. We can start trying to look at specific moveset ideas in a moment. Let's go ahead and create a new canvas. And we might try to sketch down a couple of specific ideas here. What we're given the most freedom with is specials. That's an interesting idea. Broham, are you still in the chat? I could try making his side B. I think our best example would be from Clarion here. Clarion's one example. What's this? That's the special button, that's right. So you'll see the side B on Clarion has her do an invincible dash, and then there's the hitbox after she leaves. Compared to, I know Orcane also has a similar function like this. Side B, actually Orcane's probably the best example character for us to do. He sets up traps and has a lot of very good evasive movement techniques. The side B here being an invincible and invisible teleport. Laying down traps with the neutral B and, well, generally all of these specials that aren't side specials. You start doing traps that you set up for opponents to walk into, and then while they're trying to chase after you, you have them explode into bubbles, or you swap positions with it using upbeat, for example. So my question to you, Broham, since you've fought me in accent course so many times, what about a side B as sort of a dandy step? Maybe a horizontal teleport that, once you think you've pinned the Xander Salamander down, he teleports out of the way and then has a very large hitbox that he hits you with in that place. That would be Slayer's big-ass punch that he does off of that dodge maneuver. You know, the one where he slips away from you and then runs back in with the very, very large punch. And if he catches you with a counter hit, then you lose half your health off of that one exchange. That might be a good idea for a side B. Maybe not a recovery move, because an up B for that function, we want to have something vertically oriented, and having a huge punish option off of a recovery move might be a bit of a toxic game design. So, as the start of many ideas, that's our first of ideas. Sounds miserable to fight against, so it's gotta be good. Yeah, that definitely fits the punish scenario. Like with Clarion here having the teleports to get away. If you start trying to make an attack towards Clarion, then Clarion can just teleport away and you'll be hit by that hitbox instead as she leaves. If you're hit right there at the center, then you take the full damage. But that's also a very good movement option, and you'll see it's a move that you can't just throw out because it has a lot of end lag there. Once she does her movement, it's a lot of time before you can start moving again. So you mostly have to do that once you have your opponent baited into attacking you specifically. You get that hard read, get out of dodge, and hit them on your way out. So for side B, we'll steal something like what Clarion has. Or a dandy step, just some sort of an invincible but committal dash, something that you can't throw out, but if your opponent tries to attack you through it, then you'll be able to punish them. That's a good start. I just want to go off with, just as an idea, up special. Just as the first idea to throw out for a bit of brainstorming. Rocket boots. Now hear me out on this. Something similar to... Aliana doesn't have that. Does anyone have a hitbox as they're leaving? Similar to what Clarion was doing there. The side B had an explosion as Clarion leaves. So on a punish character for an up special, it could be an attack that starts with an explosion and then sends you upward, sort of like rocket jumping in Team Fortress. That way, if someone's chasing after you, then you can go ahead and use that explosion to get out of dodge and punish them on the way. But make it a very committal option. So if you just randomly throw it out, it's very open for a big punish off of that. Now it just needs to make sense with the character design. What I'm thinking about is, as we're going off of the previous gadget idea, just having, what's a good character to reference for that? Off of who else we have here, RoboKai would be a good example. Gold Lewis as well. We have a scientist-engineer character, and of course I did make the Eggman impression earlier. The whole character gimmick could be throwing out various unstable and explosive inventions left and right, so it is a good example for that. Moreover, who's a great example for that? We already know there's some gimmicks of that, with, say, for example, Gold Lewis pulling out various weapons and machines out of that alien coffin. The coffin that's carrying around drones or even a minigun, along with a variety of flags and flowers and stuff like that. The general idea is pulling out whatever weapon you need out of your back pocket, so he'll spontaneously have some sort of little gadget or tool or a weapon. And those just sort of would materialize out of nowhere as part of the smug sort of trickster gimmick we're going for with terms of character personality. No idea for a neutral or down B yet. Plus, if he's got rocket boots, it makes sense for him to not be wearing shoes yet, if they're just going to be coming out of nowhere. Gold Lewis might be the best example, just because I don't think you've seen RoA in Accent Core who does similar things. It was this one, right? Yeah, Gold Lewis. So in Accent Core, I might even boot that up here for something else to reference. Accent Core plus R. How I've missed you. Do we have anyone in Smash who does that? Just pops up weapons out of nowhere. Just as a real quick example, another thing that we have here, and another character I did play previously in XX before I figured he was a little too unorthodox. I don't think I've shown you my RoA. Let me know if the volume is a little too loud. I know Accent Core tends to have very, very loud volume. But you'll see this definitely isn't Kai, even though he has the same standing animation. He has a few of the same attacks, but for example, his slash is different. Used RoBokai, but he might not be enough for you to know. The gimmick with RoBokai is, well, one, his meter functionality is a lot different. If he was a little bit easier to figure out, I'd definitely play him more, but for example, his 6 speed, he has a shotgun in his elbow, and that's actually one of the ways that you build up heat. As an example here, he's about to explode. There. So that's what I was discussing earlier with an overheat mechanic that we've seen on RoBokai. It's like Nagariki's blood meter, where he's more powerful the higher up he is, but he's more prone to destroying himself for that. But RoBokai's other specials, he has just a random little chariot horse that he pulls out of nowhere. He has the rocket launcher, which he's also pulling out of his back pocket. His heavy slash, he gets a big mace out of his arm. Jump dust, he has a little helicopter bicycle thing there. Rocket punches off of the aerial versions of that attack. What else? Best example in Smash you can think of is Simon. The Castlevania characters definitely fit in the fact that they have a lot of tools on them they're pulling out of their back pockets. That's another very good example. I don't think there's any other... Yeah, I don't think there's any other good ideas here. But the general idea is having a character who has a whole bunch of gadgets on their person, sort of like the Castlevania characters. Or Snake. Snake is another excellent example. Character that at first is unassuming, but he'll have a whole bunch of extra little tools on him that he'll pull out for an attack. Which is why the rocket boots works, and then there's... Yeah, the bomb setups. That's another space control punish tool. Snake kind of does a similar idea, but his is mostly space control given that he remotely detonates those bombs, and he leaves them up. I don't think I'm going to necessarily try a trap character that leaves traps, but mostly just has hitboxes as he's running away, basically. That's an interesting idea here. What else could we be doing? Any ideas for a neutral B or a down B? General idea here is mostly having evasive attacks, and then maybe we could have the Neutral special and down special sort of support that game plan. Something that coaxes your opponent to run after you. Maybe some anti camping tools. Neutral B for a standard projectile, I think, is fine. Maybe that's where we could have, I don't know, something other than a basic fireball. Maybe an aimable projectile or something kind of like Zelda's side B. That way you can have Zelda's side B from Smash, where you send out a hitbox and remotely detonate it, which would coax your opponent into doing some movement if they're trying to outcamp you. Steve also has a lot of tricks up his sleeves, indeed. Short sleeves or long sleeves. That's generally what we're focusing on, someone who has just a lot of tools tucked away. Huh, that's actually a very good idea. I wonder if there's sort of an opportunity for a builder character as well. We already have that in Craig's nonsense. You know, maybe we could look up a perspective from someone who has more experience with Rivals of Aether's competitive scene. Of Aether character archetypes. Maybe someone has an article on this. Hmm. Oh, this is a workshop fandom article. Okay, that's interesting. Get out of those little windows, and I'll see about bringing this over here. You would say hero, but Shovel Knight does that. So this is definitely what we're looking at right here. This is a very good chart for um, Smash archetype references, which are going to be very different from traditional fighting games, given how guarding functions a lot differently. In traditional fighting games, you have to deal with strike throw mix ups. In Smash and its derivatives, it's mostly around getting your opponent to block enough that you can punish them for it. Let's get a bigger image on here. See if we can zoom in here. This doesn't encompass everything necessarily, but this is a very good example of archetypes that we mostly find. Rushdown being a character that focuses on sticking to your opponent as closely as possible. Those of you familiar with fighting games will definitely know what Rushdown is, but this is going to be characters like Fox or Sheik who just try to run straight at your opponent and get in and do damage like that. Close to that, we have a zone breaker, which is definitely a function we want. Zoners, as you see over here, are characters that, like Simon or Eliana, those are characters that want to fill the screen with projectiles and keep you away as much as possible. Axel is one of our good examples for Strive. Who else? I know we have more than one zoner there. Dizzy is another good zoner example, but she's in the other Guilty Gear games. And she will definitely be showing up soon. I know exactly how popular she is. Similar to there, we have spacing character. I don't exactly know how that one's defined. Getting late for you, so you're gonna go. Have a good stream. Thank you for showing up, Fid. I'm always glad to see you around here. Hope you sleep well. Turtle is going to be a very defensively oriented, safe character that can get by with taking very minimal risks. Fighting them is going to be incredibly slow. This is Potemkin in the Anji versus Potemkin matchup. He's wanting to stay at a distance and uses high damage, low risk, and a lot of health in order to be as difficult to kill as possible. We're going to just generally try to avoid this whole section of the triangle here. Glass Cannon sits here right between Zoner and Rushdown, another spot where kind of wanting to avoid. That's anyone that has incredibly high attack power, but absolutely no defense whatsoever. And that's generally going to be the line here, is mostly offensive characters with weak defense. More strong defense characters are going to be here in the bottom. Neutral beast. I will never understand smashers and their absolutely horrible terminology. That's terrible even by FGC standards. Variability is probably a well-rounded character with a lot of tools. This would be where Anji would fit if he were a Smash character. Animal Men, welcome. We're here on YouTube talking about character archetypes because we are working on a character design for Rivals. Welcome. Setup and Trickster are kind of in the vein that we're going for. We're mostly looking for a mix of bait and punish, zone breaker, and hit and run. That's also a very, very good character idea. This right here is a wiki of custom workshop characters, and we might have some examples for us to look at. But a lot of the characters on here look like they're going to be stuff that we find on the workshop. This is workshop focused, not focused on the main characters in Rivals. Wonder if we have a better list on here. How you doing, Animal Man? Okay, we have a few good examples here. Raster and Maple are classic light rushdown characters. Forceburn is too, but he has less speed, so it's a little harder to get the hang of, although his combo game is ridiculous. All of those characters have very good tools to keep yourself stuck to your opponent. Rastor has his exceptional movement to be able to always try to get closer. Maple has the seeds, which can be used for setups to get herself to close down the distance. Bait and punish, zone breaker, and setup. Absolutely. I'm gonna try to go light on the setup, maybe. I don't enjoy set play that much. In terms of set play I've enjoyed in fighting games, it's usually just get a knockdown and then send out one projectile. I don't like the characters such as Jacko, who just throw down a whole bunch of traps, or Snake, for example. Crag, Absa, and Orcane are in Crag as a zoner, interesting. Though given his defense and the fact that his rocks occupy a lot of space, that definitely makes sense for him. They can be played rushdown, but their kits have so many tools to peel off rushers, it's useful to see them if you're really aggressive. Orcane and Absa are definitely zoners. They have lots of evasive projectiles, and they are very set play heavy. We did show a little bit of Orcane earlier. I don't know too much about Absa. We might be able to bring her up. Let's go ahead and boot up Rivals again. Might as well leave that running and just close it out whenever we're not doing it. You'll also notice the Game Maker Studio 2 logo in the bottom left when it was starting up. That is an engine I have experience with, so that should be a little bit easier for me to get the hang of once we get to the modding part. So taking a look at more zoner examples here with Absa. Oh yeah, Brohem, I believe you said you wanted to pick up Rivals. Let me know if you're wanting to fight sometime soon. Okay, cool. Characters in Rivals often have an element of stage control. It's not quite set play, but it's a universal trait to the game. One of the other threads I did see on here, let's go ahead and go back a page. I did read through this a little bit, but here we have a very good perspective here. I feel like Rivals is designed in a way to avoid these archetypes. Most of the cast is given some sort of toy mechanic, an item exclusive to the character that they create, and several multi-purpose moves that impact with said toy. If your responses are a little slow, you're on mobile at the moment. No sweat at all. It's a very laid-back, theory-crafting, daydreaming sort of stream. Brainstorming, that's the word for it. We're mostly brainstorming today. We've been spending a little bit of time messing around with art stuff. We're going to see if we can do a sort of lizard-esque character probably works best with the Xander face here. It's mostly just a lizard wearing my outfit at this point, but we're looking at potential character moveset and archetype ideas for us to be pulling from. Forceburn and his clouds, crags, rocks, and pillars, Maple's lily, Orcane's puddle, and Abs's cloud. They all have some sort of little stage prop for them to place down, and then that's what they use for their defensive and offensive play. Even Raster and Zetter have mechanics like these, although they are less dynamo and more straightforward as the options go. Rastor has the tornado that he throws out for the gale, and Zetter has his fire status that he sets up on you, and then he uses that for the smash attack mechanics. What's your idea, Animal Man? We have everything that we're wanting to go through today. All ideas are welcome. So Abs's whole thing is she does have a very Zelda-esque side B. You set up the clouds like that, and you can use that to create lightning bolts between them. That'll have a hitbox. You can also use it for a little bit of set play. Oh, right, it was down B. You get that started up, and you'll have a delayed hitbox, so you can use that to try to snuff someone's recovery. Other than that, Absa generally has the sort of frail, floaty zoner archetype going on. Aware of Nessa's yo-yo glitch in Melee? Absolutely. An entire character mechanic based around that would be interesting. I did have a Xander character lore that I never really followed up on just because I wasn't really sure how much effort I was going to invest in this whole thing. But there is sort of a implied sort of Rick and Morty-esque thing going on with the Xander Turing lore. We could have a character that messes around with the yo-yo glitch and the fact that you could create little portals that you use to teleport around. Interesting idea for a little bit of setup. What if you made it intentional? I guess that's kind of what Absa does here, actually, when you think about it. Having a hitbox that extends across the stage like that. So you do the whole attacks and setups, and if you have someone who's trying to chase you a little bit too hard, I can't really exactly have the AI chase me like that. But Absa kind of does her own yo-yo glitch, having the lightning bolt hitboxes that can stretch across the stage like that. I wonder how the hitboxes for that work. Ah, it is a rectangle that entire way through. Interesting. I like that idea. I wonder how we're gonna make that work. We could actually use that in conjunction with our planned side B and up B. Setting up portals and then having large hitboxes extend between them in the meantime. I like that idea. Let's write that one down. Get our text tool, and I wonder if there's a way we can just set the default text size to be much smaller. What is it called? I have an idea for this one. I'm gonna have to remember it, but there is a whole thing about particle physics where it's implied that every single particle has an equal opposite, not in terms of Newton's law sort of things, but say protons have what are the opposing particles anyway? We're going to have a bit of a science lesson, every single one of us here. Having a hitbox between the cloud and Absa is just one part of Absa's overall cloud play, along with her delayed hitboxes and all that stuff. Of course, I don't actually know exactly what sort of genius goes into playing ABSA, but this is stuff with having those out there, and then the delayed hitboxes around the cloud, or just having the hitbox right there. Just trying to coax your opponent into standing there. Having little sparks given as well. A shame that you can only throw in one though, but I guess you have to spend the entire time coaxing your opponent around it. That just sets a part of the stage they can't really sit around. Let's look here. Quora. I suppose that's an okay source for us to look at. Someone might have something cited. Composite particles, blah blah blah. Anti-atom would be antimatter. Anti-nucleons, anti-electrons. Go away. ABSA's hard, that's exactly why I don't play her. One, I don't really enjoy zoner characters, and even though I did have, a few minutes ago on stream, I mentioned a fixation on electric-focused characters. I still don't think I'd play ABSA just because it's some whole zoning mess to try to figure out how to play her. I like my game plan a little bit more straightforward. I appreciate having to think hard and try hard for my game plan, but I don't want it to be some whole set up some chest and attack your opponent 2 weeks in the future. Antimatter is another really good idea for us to try. Hold on. Let's write that one down. I like it. If we're going for a yo-yo glitch, we could have something where we set up opposing particles and then have hitboxes between them if we're doing the yo-yo glitch specifically. That does sort of specifically replicate ABSA's mechanic here. With having those large lightning bolts that you extend across the screen. I guess that's literally just a yo-yo glitch what she does. Although using that... Oh. That's another idea. It's kind of a weird, horrible setup, but what about literally some sort of a Thunder Jacket attack? For those of you who don't know about that, that is a subpart of the yo-yo glitch in Melee. I'm not going to throw on a full documentary right now, because I think most of you understand what that would be. The yo-yo glitch in Melee is... Ness's up smash has a hitbox while it's charging. And if you hit someone and stop charging it at the same time, it leaves the hitbox lingering on the stage, which is sort of similar to ABSA throwing out a cloud. So it leaves it sitting there for a while. And what happens is the next time you use an attack, it stretches that hitbox that you left placed on the stage somewhere to wherever you currently are and wherever that new hitbox is, which is essentially sort of like that lightning bolt there. It creates a very long extended hitbox on the stage, but it has a number of other weird effects, such as letting you attach hitboxes from other attacks to you. I'm going to assume everyone here is familiar with Smash, so you know about Ness's up B, and how it has a very powerful electric hitbox on it. I'm going to mute the desktop audio just so that we can try to avoid having... Yeah, yo-yo glitch with Thunder Jacket. Let's go ahead and shill someone else's YouTube. It's a full tutorial. It's gonna talk about the setup here, I believe. So he hits with the yo-yo there, which stuck out a little hitbox, and that's actually lingering around invisible on the stage. Right there. He hits with that yo-yo, and that creates a hitbox that sits around. And then you can have... what is he doing? Right here. You'll see he swung his bat very far away from Falcon. But what happened was, from where he placed that yo-yo hitbox before, The glitch actually made it extend over to where his bat is. So now we might actually have a perspective on the Thunder Jacket. Visual of the yo-yo glitch and hitbox in red. This will be a much better example. You'll see he uses the up smash here and stops charging it at just the right spot. Right there, the little red spot being left there. Then he'll use another attack from a different spot on the stage. Like that grab, which extended the grab box all that distance. So what we have here, see if we can find something about the Thunder Jacket. The Thunder Jacket, right here. So what he does here is he'll set up a hitbox with the yo-yo glitch, and then use Ness's up B, which with the yo-yo glitch will attach his PK Thunder hitbox around himself, and it will stay on him until he comes into contact with someone. Must be away from the enemy, not between, like the initial glitch. So now you can't see it. It doesn't have any extra effects, but there's an invisible hitbox lingering on Ness here. And once he gets close to Captain Falcon, bam. The hitbox was attached to Ness for that entire time, even though you can't see anything. So even if we don't go with a yo-yo glitch idea, how about maybe for a down special, maybe something of a limit break close to what Cloud does in Smash 4 and Ultimate. We could have a Thunder Jacket set up. This would be an anti-camping tool because if someone's trying to camp you out with projectiles, you could spend small amounts of time charging it in between dodging their attacks. And then after it's fully charged, Xander, either completely on fire or surrounded by electricity, could have an extra hitbox to chase after his opponents with. Sort of a big investment for maybe a small payoff, but it would be a tool to discourage camping away from him, and also give him something to do in the downtime between doing attacks. Say, between lives. Either one of you gets a KO, you could start charging a little bit of a Thunder Jacket. We wouldn't necessarily need to do a full hitbox across the screen setup with it. I don't think there's any character that does that in this game. Wonder what else we could do with, say, an antimatter theme. Maybe it would actually be called something like Antimatter Jacket. Something like that. So, we have an anti-zoning tool, somewhat. Maybe on top of that, master of antimatter, wormholes, and lasers. Lasers are very important, so I want to do some sort of a projectile or maybe even a beam for the neutral special. Maybe the Thunder Jacket itself doesn't have that violent of a hitbox on it, but maybe it could absorb projectiles, and that could actually let you rush at your opponent. Say, if they can't accurately keep hitting you with projectiles, put on a Thunder Jacket and run towards your opponent, and they won't be able to keep you away with hitboxes. Maybe it's sort of a timed reflector that you put on that might be able to reflect a few projectiles before you can get it shrugged off. So for neutral special, we're definitely needing some sort of projectile, just because I like having at least one on every character. Characters I play in every game, I mean, projectiles are fun to play with, so I want to do something with that. That might be where we do some sort of nuclear fusion or antimatter particles. But we have to figure out a gimmick for them. We don't want just a regular fireball there. Now, my favorite character in any fighting game of all time would be Hye-hyun from Guilty Gear Xrd. And the gimmick that she had with her projectiles is Sort of like how you can control. Let's bring out Aliana here real quick. Sort of like how Aliana, derivative of Pit here, could control, with her control stick, can control those side B projectiles. What Heihyun does in Guilty Gear, I'm not going to boot that entire game up for this demonstration unless someone would like me to. It's pretty intuitive to figure out. Heihyun had a fireball similar to Hadokens from other characters, but you could control its horizontal velocity using your inputs. So it's basically the same as this, except it could only move horizontally and would only be controlled horizontally. What you do with that is you get a knockdown and you send out that projectile, which you can place behind your opponent. And that keeps them from trying to walk away so much. And then you can bounce them between your projectile and yourself. Now, a very special weakness of mine would be controllable projectiles. That's one reason I focus on Aliana so much. Because I love doing this shit. Look at it. Very, very fun. So we might have some sort of controllable or gimmicky projectile for neutral special. If we want to go for another element there we can mess with, we could try maybe some sort of magnetism where we have a projectile we could get to, after you send it out, either go away from Xander or get closer to Xander. Very awkward projectile without much know-how, but it's a good mix-up tool. I very much love the rockets here, indeed. I don't have enough knowledge of Rivals of Aether to know exactly what her best options are with it, or exactly how to play her too perfectly. So that's a very good thing to refer to. I think that actually serves as, if we're going to do the whole sort of bait and punish setup, we need to make sure that it doesn't set into zoner territory. Because if there's a projectile that we can just kind of throw out there and basically imply it to hit our opponent as they're trying to chase us down, that does make us a zoner. Of course, if you could always just track that projectile and it doesn't have a chance to, say, have the huge delayed hitbox or extend a hitbox across the entire stage, that might not be a zoner setup. This is sort of what we're looking at here. Antiparticles, I think that's what we're looking at. So antimatter would be a very good thing for us to focus on. Every one of the particles has something on the opposite. I think they actually had the chart here. Yeah. So every particle in here has... can we get a zoom in? I think those are all individual page links. Can I get the full image? There we go. So here we have... where are they? I guess they're part of the subset of quarks then. Here is where we'd have protons and neutrons that are actually made up out of quarks. Leptons contains electrons here, but every single one of these has an opposite. It's noting some of the charges here, but it's not the full chart I'm looking for. So with that, make the projectile be short range. I think that's a good enough idea. Make it not a huge long range tool to hit someone from across the map. Maybe a way we could try to get two projectiles to interact and then have a huge explosion, but that once they bring into contact with each other. That could be an antimatter setup if we're going to talk about annihilation. When a particle and its respective antiparticle meet up, they both just make a huge explosion, allegedly. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. That's what this whole article is about. Most probable is the creation of two or more photons. Blah, blah, blah. They. Some particles allegedly, once they come into contact with each other, will just vanish since they cancel each other out. But we're going to take our artistic license for physics and do whatever the hell we want, so long as it sounds cool. So maybe for that, let's go ahead and write that down. That would be interesting. I wonder how we set that up then. We might have one, we might have two. We'll figure out a trick with that. That might actually be what we could replace with the side B. We could have maybe some sort of... Oh, wait, if we're talking about yo-yo glitches, maybe... Maybe the side special functions as a tool to dodge someone. Say, for example, gonna bring out Clarion again. Now that I think about it, that would actually be a lot like Orcane. Have something where, say, side B, you'll see how it leaves that delayed hitbox on Clarion. Maybe you have that set up, a single stationary projectile that doesn't have a hitbox, just some other little thing in the background. And then if we can get that to interact with the neutral special, that sets up a large explosion. That is starting to sound like zoning stuff, but it's focused on a small area. We might be able to do some sort of gimmick where you could set that up towards a cliff and then try to time two particles to interact with each other, antiparticles. And then once you get them to clash with each other near the edge, that would cause a huge explosion, so you could use that to interrupt someone's attempt to recover. Sounds a lot like another one of those zoner space control things, but so long as we can get it right, such as Animal Man's suggestion with making it a short-range attack, we could use that more as a punish tool rather than a zoning tool, because I don't want a zoning character. I want to do some punish gimmicks. Well, let me take a look at that chart again. We'll leave that very, very calming training music from Rivals of Aether in the background. Very, very calming. I love it. I wonder if we have an example back on here. Da-da-da, very straightforward movements, archetypes. See if we have some other examples in this post here. Xander is basically Space Animal, as I said on our last stream. High combos, huge payoff if you get a Fire Smash. Italis, don't know what to say. He's a heavy, but he's fast and in your face. Don't sleep on the bear, ever. He can catch your DI and kill you so fast. He's a heavy with good movement, but he still has a very large hitbox and slow frame data, so he's very prone to being comboed. If you like Marth, you'll probably like Rastor or Force Burn, as they share some of his moves. Field of control on stage would depend on those two projectiles and how they interact. I think it would have to be a very, very long and very telegraphed setup, to where if you end up getting caught by that, you might have just deserved it. Good night, Kayla. Glad for you to have attended the stream. And thank you, Kayla. Da-da-da, text walls left over here. Wonder if we have any more insight on here. Marth, Puff, and Falcon in a Blender drew Falco skin on top of it all. Yeah, that's accurate. So here on the workshop wiki, we have this chart we can reflect on, which has some examples on what we're doing. We want to have elements of zone breaking, bait and punish, and Trickster, I think, would go in the vein of, say, Force Burn and his little Smoke Shadow clones. A little bit of setup. I'm not sure what necessarily count with trapping. I'd say with whatever setup Xander does, it has to be very deliberate and very focused. So not leaving around zoning hitboxes to catch someone, but instead getting your opponent to have a very specific mistake that you've punished them with. So we have a few character archetypes for us to look at here. Pure bait and punish. These fighters apply pressure on their opponents and manipulate their behavior to lure them with traps that apply pressure. They differ from zoners as they keep themselves off from them while facing away and evading their opponents. They usually wait for the moment to strike, oftentimes waiting for their opponents to miss their attacks. This is very specifically what I talked about earlier in the stream. We are wanting a character that doesn't chase after your opponent, but wants to be able to harass them at arm's length to get them to try to chase after you. They have examples here, so we might download these workshop characters and see what we can do with them. Let's go ahead and put those in the search engine, shall we? To the workshop. Go into that search bar and we are looking for Hikaru is the first of our names. The Kitsune. Of course, that's definitely a very good character archetype for someone who's supposed to trick and bait you. And then we're looking for load and pull. Cute. 5 stars and 4 stars. Tricksters. Most of these fighters have the bait and punish strategies, but they also have some sort of trapping gimmick in order to excel. Trapping, maybe. Setup. These fighters usually bait in certain situations that applies pressure that leaves their opponent with limited options or in a damaging combo, like Yuto and Valkyrie. Brawler. These fighters focus on close-range combos with their short-range attacks, normally having a lot of priority on their moves and have very big combos. They're similar to a pure rushdown fighter in terms of combo games, but they can also apply most of their bait and punish tactics. I think that's another big favorite of mine is, you'll see me do that with Gold Lewis and Strive a lot. I get someone in the corner, apply pressure, and when they try to get out, I usually have an evasive maneuver. I'll do something such as jumping back and then do an aerial 624 Behemoth Typhoon. Not 100% about Hikaru. No, she's got clones, but you know about load and pull and they are weird. We might not have too much time to explore too many of the characters here on the workshop, but we can save that for our next Rivals of Aether stream. I'm actually having a lot of fun here. I'd like to do a lot of this. So while we're looking for brawler characters, which is another good idea, Liz and Epinel. Interesting. I like the looks of these characters. Middle variability. Most fighters in this category can play almost any playstyle in any situation. They have bits of each playstyle and tactic, so yeah, the typical well-rounded characters. Glass Cannon, no, I'm not gonna have just a complete defenseless character. I don't like being that lopsided. Hit and run is another good thing for us to look at. These fighters put themselves in between the rushdown and bait and punish category, which are both what we like, but we don't want to do pure rushdown. These fighters are typically fast and they attack in and out of their opponent's range. They are generally quick enough to keep their distance and approach as they need to retreat. So let's look at those characters. Animal Man and anyone else in the chat who has good perspectives on character archetypes that are on the workshop, let me know which ones to avoid and which ones are actually very good examples to pull from. Ashikaga. I hope I spelled that right. Looks like I did. Looks like baby's first edgy teen OC. Flipnote Frog. Ah, cute. I love it. And Olympia. I said Olympia. Oh! We literally saw her earlier. She looks like a very fun character. Now, let's see if those have actually downloaded and are showing up in the workshop tab already. I wonder if those download in the background while we're doing stuff here. Seems not. I might have to restart the game real quick. Or maybe just reload the practice menu. Nope, we still don't have them. Exit out of that real quick. Take a peek back in Steam again. Looks like it finished downloading, so let's boot that back up. Game Maker Studio 2, as I mentioned. Take another drink. You're thinking really, really hard. Well, I think they have some very good examples to start with here on the main screen. I think right now we can actually just size this up to the entire screen since I think we're done doing the sketching and theory crafting part for now. I actually might have to be out of here pretty soon, so for the moment, let's wind down and just play with a couple of the workshop characters and see what stuff we can look at here. Oh, it's freezing up on me. There we go. What's with this? Okay. Why'd you give the sound effects there? What the heck do you do? Typical neutral air. Most of the character identity is going to be through the specials. I actually have this still at the original window size, so I think I'm going to make that bigger real quick. Graphics. Oh. Try that again. Play Rivals of Aether twice, since it's on there twice. Move that window off to the side. And I'll just move that to where it's sitting over there on OBS. So, now we just get to spend a few minutes playing with the workshop characters, and seeing what we like. Olympia and 3 other workshop characters are coming to the base game. That's actually what I thought the definitive edition was first, and I made the mistake of thinking about that when I was doing the last stream, but no, definitive edition already came out a year ago. But yeah, I'm very excited for seeing them come into the base game. Alright, looks like a typical charge projectile. Does that do anything else fancy? Looks like a stun there. Side B looks a lot like wolves. Kind of. Big oop. Yeah, it wasn't really that much of an issue. So I see the clones, but I wonder if they're supposed to do something different. Ah, well, maybe I'll have to do my research and do a formal look at ideas to steal stream later. I see the little doll being left behind by that. Yeah, we don't exactly have an example of what she's specifically supposed to do here, but you'll see she has very good mobility overall. And looks like a couple of decently evasive tools. And if this is supposed to be like Wolf Side B, yeah, it's going to have that huge hitbox at that exact distance. So you have to bait someone to be in a very specific spot either with your combos or with your movement, and then set up for the really big hitbox punish there. Load and pull. Is this going to be a puppet character? Think they have to hit the clone. Huh, interesting. Gives herself a little bit of invincibility for a moment. Somewhat. Very simple animation, but I know that I'm not gonna do any better. Ah, so it's sort of a gravity-based magnetism character, it looks like. Looks like they're still work in progress, sort of. Alright, so it's sort of a... You set up a hitbox there that... It only works on him. Interesting. Yeah, this looks very, very odd for a character. Slow smash attack, but I really like the way that one looks. We might have to do some more research onto that one later, but it doesn't look like we'll be seeing too much from that one. Where were you listed on the little list here? Brawler. Oh, I really love our animations. Alright, so it looks like mostly just melee attacks. Which is probably what you're generally going to be doing. I'll see what that meter is about off-stream. I think this was another brawler character over here. Looks the part, being some sort of a mole, maybe? Oh, I love that. Custom-built platform. So, you'll see on the brawler-type characters they mostly have high-damage, short-range combo setups. Babby's first edgelord OC. Student president. Alright. Looks like kind of a well-rounded character, having... Oh, I like that. It's fancy. Building up a meter. Which looks towards Dandy, I think it is. Or something. I guess you just build that up and invest that into one of your specials. Alright. So how's that listed on here? Ah, hit and run. Okay. So we'll need to look at how these characters differentiate from the other characters. We are wanting to do a sort of hit and run playstyle. Blazing through these, mostly because I imagine they all have sort of gimmicks that we'll analyze better on the next stream. But we just want to take a quick look at these for now. We're not doing a whole in-depth analysis because a lot of these characters will have gimmicks we definitely want to read to another time. I only have a few minutes left here before I do have something else I'm being called to, so... We are just wanting to take a very quick glimpse at what is basically going to be the content for our next stream. Because I imagine a lot of these specials have very different gimmicks going on with them. Know what most of these characters do, but they all require decent explanations. Yeah, we're probably gonna save that for next stream, when we do a full-blown investigation into all of these different character functions. But these are a start for characters we can look at, and I'll just generally look at all of the most popular characters on the workshop. Like that. I have no idea what that's about. Oh. Well, whatever it does. Set up a bomb and then explode it later, looks like. First a fireball and then a bomb, but if you're close, you get pulled to it. Interesting. I guess that's an armored attack. Fight, yeah. Wait till you get close. Oh, well, it does freeze him in place for a little bit. Okay, yeah, it did armor through that attack, so I think that is an armor setup right there. On the down B. And that's literally just Makoto's punch from Third Strike. I love it. Can you cancel it? Doesn't look like it. But looks like a fun little combo tool there. So these are some of the characters we can definitely analyze more in depth on the next stream. And then a few more workshop characters. What I'm interested in is for anyone here in the chat who does want to mess around with workshop characters in the future. Be around for the next Rivals stream because it's probably going to be mostly workshop focused. And then we're going to be talking more about character-specific functions and designs for what we're going to do for our own custom character. I might be doing a lot more work on that off of stream just to get more hours spent into getting something better set up. So right now it's looking like we have our work cut out for it. Why am I centered? Move me over here. There we go. That's a lot better. So we have our work cut out for us. There's a lot more stuff for us to be looking at for a character design here. Specials are where we should spend most of our idea for the characterization, but I think we have a very good direction for us to go for. We've spent the time to draw and come up with some character functions, and the class has actually given some very, very interesting and wonderful ideas. I'm proud of all of you who've attended here and had something to say. Probably no stream tomorrow, but next week expect more of the usual roguelikes, and then we're going to try to do some more Rivals of Aether. The schedule looks like it's going to get packed if we have more games for us to be fitting in, so maybe I will end up doing a lot more streaming. Tomorrow's probably a break, expect something on Monday or Tuesday next. Thank you, James. Thank you for coming. Next Rival stream will be focused mostly on workshop stuff, and we can go ahead and fight anyone in the chat when that shows up. I'll see if I can actually have a good schedule sent out on Sunday. But you know what? Might at least leave that as a challenge to myself. Try to get something posted Sunday evening which sets up a schedule to help plan out the next week. As part of the usual VTuber package, I should be doing that, but mostly it's spontaneous so far. Otherwise, class is dismissed. Thank you all for attending.